After reviewing the released plans for development of the Brightsource solar power plant, the team developed and analyzed specific areas for risks and concerns. Within this analysis, the design team drafted a risk register to document each risk. The risk register shows the associated risks, the probability of occurrence, and the overall impact of the risk. After all of the risks were identified, a thorough analysis was performed to find the best risk mitigation strategy to lower the range performance of the risk. The team found that prior to the mitigation strategies, the risks had a variety of overall impacts to the development of the solar power plant. After mitigations were determined, the identified risks were mostly decreased to be a minimal and low to moderate risk level. This here is the risk register. As you can see, each risk was identified, rated for the probability of occurrence and the impact the risk would have if it occurred. Afterwards, mitigation strategies were determined to try and buy down the risks. Some risks, however, are very high and dangerous risks, and mitigation strategies are not always effective. For example, the second risk listed in this risk register, the visual impact to pilots flying above the surrounding areas. The probability of this risk occurring can be mitigated by studying the flight patterns and trying to avoid areas that have a high count or high flight rate for airplanes flying over. However, if this risk was to occur, there isn't much you can do to mitigate the impact on the pilots. If the reflection is too strong for a pilot to handle, a fatal accident would be hard to avoid. However, if you look at the second risk listed within this risk register, there are mitigation strategies you can put in place to receive a return on your investment. For example, standard project management practices like margin in your schedule can aid in making sure you don't overrun costs with overtime for having to make up time for uncalculated delays. This here is the risk reporting matrix. This 5x5 matrix is an excellent summary representation of how risks can be rated overall and the importance of trying to mitigate their impact accordingly. On here, you will also see a summary of what the risk is and the mitigation plan registered with this risk as where it falls within the matrix. Now to talk about the finances. In order for Brighthouse to construct their project, they had to investigate their finances. Brightsource was able to get estimated costs for constructing and operating a solar power plant by using a levelized cost of energy chart similar to the one on this slide. This chart was a good indicator to Brightsource that going forward with this project wouldn't be cheap but worth the investment. This is why they also looked into taking a loan from the U.S. Department of Energy for $1.6 billion, as well as finding well-off investors like Google and NRG to help offset some of the cost. However, Brightsource is struggling to receive a return on their investment. The weather has not produced the solar power that was expected for the designated area. As you can see in the lower California areas of the maps, the climate is below the predicted numbers that Brighthouse was hoping for. Lastly, the technology. The Brightsource solar power plant is the first of its kind and definitely won't be the last. Being a concentrated solar power facility, a backup plan can be installed into the plant system in case there is an impact from weather. That's why, when Brightsource started doing research for land in the California area, they were focusing on a certain part of the Mojave Desert. This area in the desert allowed the use of natural gas to help run the power plant when the weather wasn't cooperating. Even though the results haven't been what Brightsource has predicted, the backup system is rarely used. Most of the time, just in the early morning as a warm-up while the sun rises, fully meeting the intent of the solar power plant. Now, talking about the backup, and the California law allows you to only have a 5% usage of that backup plan, and the Brightsource project is really only using 2% in the morning time.